So if you look at this number, this is estimated Muslim population in UK by percentage from 83 till today. I'm sure you've seen this. 500,000 in 83, 1%. And then it cracked 1 million in 97, 14 years later, and then 2 million, and then 4 million, and then 4.5, some say 5 million today, 6-7% of the population. You have flirted with the concept of wanting to run for prime minister. I heard, whether you're joking or you're being serious, if there is a crazy personality that could pull it off, you probably have the personality to pull it off. But let's just say you do say, you know what, I'm going to get in there and I'm being hired as a, true, strategic, or I'm going to run for this. Do you think this growth, the way it's going right now, getting to 10, 20, 30%, do you think it is a good idea to keep allowing people to come in to combine the Islam way of thinking, what their ideas are, and coexist with the Western ideology?
Well, I think there are issues which are serious to be considered. For example, it's been reported there are as many as potentially 85 unofficial Sharia courts in the UK now, which are not operating under UK law. They're operating in their own law for their own communities. That clearly is not a good thing in a country like the UK. I would say, look, we have a very high Muslim population now, comparative percentage-wise to the United States. In fact, I think we're not far off in terms of total numbers to the whole of America. So we have a lot of Muslims who live in the UK. We've always been a very multicultural, very tolerant place. That's why people want to come and live there, a bit like America. I would say the vast majority, I've said this before and I say it again, the vast majority of Muslims living in the UK have assimilated perfectly well and live perfectly peaceful and lives which contribute to society. The problem is, I think, coming with the sheer volume of people coming in and the sheer volume coming in illegally as well, where, as you've had in the United States, people have actually no idea who these people really are, how radicalized they may be, what their plans may be when they get to the United Kingdom. And then you see the quite disturbing spectacle of protests, say, in London during the Israel-Hamas war, where people are brazenly supporting Hamas in these protests. And, Hamas is a prescribed terror group in the United Kingdom. That should be not happening. So there is a rising concern, which Robinson has tapped into, and some would say, his critics would say, he's fueled it for his own devices, but he's tapped into a genuine concern. And the worrying thing for the government should be that as their popularity plunges, the popularity of people like Robinson and like the Reform Party under Nigel Farage, although those two don't get on, you're seeing a rising sentiment in the UK that we're losing our identity as a country, and what should we do about that, whilst preserving the UK's historic position of being a welcoming, tolerant country, proudly multicultural. How do you juggle that with the sheer volume of people coming in and the impact that's having on local communities, and how do you stop communities developing within communities? In other words, how do you stop the fragmentation of our society, where you have little separate worlds developing in all major cities and towns? These are genuine concerns. And for people, in the old days, they used to be shut down, these conversations, by people saying, well, you're racist. We're long past that stage. People now openly talk about this in UK on political shows and so on. And you're no longer just labelled a racist if you express concern about immigration. Everybody feels that this is getting unsustainable. So the question is, what do we do about it?
So you have how many kids? You have four kids? Okay.
Yeah.
So 4 kids, but they're grown, right? They're grown. They're
32 down to 13.
Okay. So you do have a 13-year-old.
13-year-old, yeah.
Okay. And then what's the oldest after 13?
32.
Okay.
Well, my youngest boy is 24, then 28,
24, so 13. If you were to start all over again, okay, and you're 25 today, and you're capable, meaning you're shy on camera, you're very comfortable being under the fire, that's your comfort zone, you're going to go make money no matter where you go, here, any other country. Would you choose to raise your 4 kids where you're at, or would you move out of the country?
I would, and I would remind people we've been through a lot more difficult times than this. I think a lot gets amplified by social media, and that can be a very good thing or a very bad thing. My grandmother was 19 at the start of World War II, and she was 25 when it ended. As she always said to me, I lost 6 of the best years of my life. She said, however, I then went from 25 to 94 and had a brilliant 70 years after that. So imagine living through World War II. Imagine the kind of conversations you and I would have been having about that, about the impending threat of Nazi domination, of Nazis taking over the UK. We've faced bigger challenges than this. This is a challenge that's come, in my opinion, across the whole of Europe. The sweeping migration, much of it coming from countries that have been at war, whether it's Syria, Iraq, or wherever it may be. But you've had millions and millions and millions of people deposed from their homes or fleeing war-torn situations and sweeping across the continent of Europe and wanting a better life for their families, which I completely understand. But it has got unsustainable. And it's not just a problem for the UK, it's a problem for Germany, for France, for many of the European countries. They're all facing the same challenges. Nobody at the moment, it seems to me, has a clear idea of what we do about this, other than I look at somewhere like the United States. I look at the way Donald Trump just slammed the brakes on the southern border almost instantaneously and reduced the number of people coming in from 2.5 million a year to literally a couple of thousand a month, right? And you look at that and you think, well, okay, you can control borders. You just have to have the determination to do it. I also think Trump has universal support in America when he says that anyone who's here illegally in the United States who then commits a crime outside of their immigration status should be deported. Where the flashpoint comes, and where it's an interesting thing as to whether other countries like the UK follow the Trump philosophy on this, is where you start deporting people who have been here for a number of years illegally, but who have been maybe working, paying taxes, contributing to society, bringing up kids and so on. What do you do with those people? I understand that they want to create an atmosphere of you have to come in illegally, and if you don't, then you can't stay here. I understand that, but you don't want America to lose its inherent sense of compassion and empathy either. And I think some of the images for me of ICE running into Home Depot and grabbing people who are undocumented and wanting to throw them out, living in LA as I do a lot of the time, the fear that's engendered amongst the community in LA is not a good thing. So I think there's a balance to be struck here, albeit you cannot look at Trump's overall immigration policy and not think it's been extremely effective so far. And you've got to look at the hypocrisy of the left when they go after Trump. It's like my favorite question for my lefty friends, my liberal woke friends. And I used to identify happily as liberal. I just find nothing in common with these people. But I say to them, how many people did Barack Obama deport in 8 years as president? They never know, for one. They can tell exactly how many Trump has, but they never know how many Obama did. And then I tell them it's 3 million people. Just Google it. You can Google it. So A, they don't want to know. B, when they find out, they're completely shocked. C, I said he was known as Deporter-in-Chief in Mexico. Right? That was his nickname.
That's right.
Right? This guy deported more people pro rata per year than any president in the history of the United States. And yet the same rules do not apply to Obama than do to people like Trump. So, I think there's a lot to learn from the way Trump's gone about it, albeit with some caveats.
When we set out to create a shoe that blends comfort, function, and luxury, we had the choice to make it fast. We had the choice to make it cheap. We chose neither. Instead, we chose Tuscany, Italy. We chose true Italian craftsmanship, each pair touched by 50 skilled hands. We chose patience, spending 2 years perfecting every detail, and we chose the finest quality at every step. Introducing the Future Looks Bright collection. Not rushed, not disposable, not ordinary. Rather, intentional, luxurious, timeless. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.